We'll teach Donald Trump a valuable lesson. Don't mess with the women in America unless you want to get the benefit.
Yeah. Woo! Yeah. 4 more years, because who can't get behind? Welcome back. Beautiful and amazing human beings. My name is Luke Rudowski here of WeAreChange.org, and there's a lot of absolute crazy news to get into today. As of course, the situation in Ukraine just got more crazier than it was before. As of course, that conflict looks like it has no end in sight. As of course, here inside of the United States, we have a very contentious presidential election that also just got a lot more insane, as there's literal phone calls trying to bribe politicians with money so they don't run for political office. What's really going on here? What's the larger extent of what just happened in New Hampshire? Well, we're going to be talking about that, plus a lot more, all here on this independent media broadcast. If you like the shirt that I'm wearing, you can get it on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. And the clip that we played in the beginning of this broadcast is an unedited, non-satirical clip of Joe Biden at his latest rally, where he was trying to, of course, galvanize all the very plump people behind him to somehow cheer enthusiastically for words that were literally made up and mumbled together. And again, I'm not disappointed in Joe Biden here. I'm disappointed in the crowd. What are you cheering for? And if this is what makes you cheer, I wonder what makes them boo. As the corporate media is once again going to be trying to make sure that Joe Biden is going to be doing everything in its power to make sure the skin suit that is Joe Biden is going to be dragged into the Oval Office once again in 2024. As after last night's results, it definitely does look like it is going to be a rematch of the 2020 presidential elections, where Joe Biden was literally hiding out in basements. We're going to talk about more about the elections in just a little bit. As of course, there's a lot of other concerning news happening right now, as today we're finding out that North Korea just fired several cruise missiles into its western coast after they just destroyed one of their peace symbols. As that's not the only place that missiles are flying, as of course right now in Ukraine, the Russians are accusing the Ukrainian government there of using Western-backed missiles to take down one of their military planes, which according to them was carrying 65 Ukrainian prisoners of war, a flight transport that was targeted by the Ukrainians that took out more of the Ukrainian young men that will never get their lives back. This as the troops are being moved around for a prisoner exchange at the border. This as the Ukrainian government is warning about sharing, quote, unverified information, as the Ukrainians are also accusing the Russians of now targeting a residential building that, of course, impacted citizens in the local region there. All of this is now a Ukrainian tennis star is forced to apologize because she shook the hands of one of her opponents that was Russian. And in my opinion, who cares about this? There's an actual real conflict going on here that we should be trying to be focusing our efforts in order to try to stop, in order to try to de-escalate, in order to try to push through a peace deal here. And it's fair to say that this conflict has absolutely gotten out of control, out of hand. And as of right now, still hasn't seen the worst of it, as of course, there's a lot of technological advancement when it comes to warfare that still hasn't been implemented here. As the Daily Mail is reporting how the Pentagon is building killer robots that a lot of people are calling for stricter rules about, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence that could be implemented, that could be smarter than the human brain, as the Pentagon is now requiring senior defense officials to review all the artificial intelligence weapons and AI robotic systems that they have that could be implemented after gathering intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and be implemented against the next combatant or what most likely will be a thought criminal that dares to question our current status quo reality that is being shoved down our throats. But don't worry, the government is here to protect you, as of course Chuck Schumer, the very awful U.S. representative in Congress, now has another issue that he's railing against, and that is of course tobacco pouches. Of course, tobacco is the big issue, not the aspartame that usually is in Zins that was legalized by Donald Rumsfeld and is considered a neurotoxin according to many scientists. But no, that nicotine that has neurotropic effects, that's the real issue here. And don't worry, the Republicans are not far behind, as of course they're also arguing about razor wire on the southern border, as the federal government and the Supreme Court are literally telling them that they can't even protect their own borders in their own states. This has led many Republicans to, of course, stand up to the federal government, disobey their, quote, lawful orders, and actually set up new wire fencing, which is creating a very perplexing, worrying situation for some that, of course, we're going to be discussing in full. The larger possibility of something bigger unfolding here on LukeUnfiltered.com. And if you haven't signed up to LukeUnfiltered.com, what are you waiting for? You could sign up for less than $8 a month. We're going to have a brand new broadcast only available for members in our quasi-secret, not-so-secret society, where we share information that, of course, is not just controversial, but centered around towards helping you become the best, strongest version of yourself. We have a 10-year plus video library of some really exclusive behind-the-scenes content centered towards helping you. Lots of masterclasses, lots of how-tos, lots of information that, of course, I tested myself on me. All available right now for members of LukeUnfiltered.com, as well as the ability to call into our live show, which we're going to be doing another one later on today, 6 p.m. Eastern, here on this particular YouTube channel. So don't forget to subscribe, click the notification button, and maybe, just maybe, the YouTube gods would actually give you a notification of when we're going live. As of course, today we're going to have someone on that's going to be extremely controversial that we're probably going to have to tell to be quiet for the first hour, as well as another person that probably will be the Libertarian presidential candidate for this election cycle. That conversation you guys get to participate in, as of course last night's conversation had Seamus Coughlin. He's a funny guy. Funny looking. And James O'Keefe here live in studio, as of course we're going to have some really, really incredible people coming and being a part of these larger broadcasts that you guys get to participate in, because as members of LukeUnfiltered.com, you get the ability to call in and ask us whatever you want during the show. Again, no screening, no be like, hey, where goes? None of that. You get to speak to us all through just becoming a member of LukeUnfiltered.com. Click the link down in the description below right now. Sign up. It's quick, it's easy, it's simple. Click right here, and I will see you there right after this particular broadcast. Now, last night we just had the New Hampshire primary, which, according to all the latest numbers and 96% of the votes counted, Donald Trump won by not a huge lead, as of course the race was called just minutes after the polls were closed last night at 8 p.m. Eastern, and Donald Trump won 54.4% of the vote, with his chief rival Nikki Haley winning 43.3% of the vote in a race that was a lot closer than a lot of people expected it to be, as of course New Hampshire does have a lot of history of going for rhino neoconservatives like John McCain and Mitt Romney, as a lot of people are highlighting this victory by Donald Trump, even though it was far slimmer than a lot of people expected it to be, does highlight a larger overall shift in the Republican presidential party that is becoming more and more anti-establishment and less of war hawks. This, as also Reuters is reporting that half of the voters last night were actually not Republicans, as many Democrats bragged about how they were voting for Nikki Haley, who has very similar policies to, of course, Sleepy Joe here, and with none of the dementia or cognitive decline. She likes war, too. She likes the military-industrial complex, Big Pharma, BlackRock, State Street. All of those individuals are behind, of course, Joe Biden, and they're also behind Nikki Haley, who did not drop out, as Donald Trump specifically went after her last night in his victory speech, calling her a, quote, imposter, who had a very bad night, as Donald Trump described that he doesn't get angry, he gets even, as the crowd there was literally cheering bird brain, one of the insults that he, of course, coined for Nikki Haley. And with Donald Trump's victory, you would think Nikki Haley would absolutely drop out, since, of course, she just lost 2 primaries, but, of course, she didn't, as Trump even went as far as to say that she will be under investigation for, quote, things she doesn't want to talk about if she stays in the race, highlighting a potential warning shot against her as Tim Scott and Vivek Ramaswamy joined Donald Trump on the campaign trail for his victory speech that CNN and MSNBC literally muted. Yes, you heard that correctly. These, quote, news organizations that play other people's speeches uninterrupted, play them without even any kind of context, especially if they toe the official line of whatever they're trying to promote on everyone. But this time, CNN and MSNBC decided to stop the speech that Trump was giving live in order to chime in with their alleged fact checkers that, of course, are arbitrarily implemented here since, of course, a lot of what is described in politics is personal opinion, that they had to interject and remind everyone that their opinion is more important than anyone else's as they stopped his speech to condemn, quote, anti-immigrant rhetoric. As immigration is one of the key issues this election cycle that clearly the Democratic Party is weaponizing as a way to make sure that they have future Democratic voters in this country, to make sure that they have more representation in Congress, and to put more pressure against the poor and middle class of this country to only be impoverished more by this reckless, horrible policies that the majority of the American people have to pay the price for. This, as it's important to note here, that it was the corporate media that allowed Joe Biden to become the president of the United States, as of course they censored stories about his son. They specifically ran cover for him, and even in many instances literally told him to stay in his basement in order for him not to be out there with the general public, as they essentially were campaigning for him in more ways than one. This, as now political pundit Van Jones on CNN literally is repeating the same message and telling Joe Biden to, quote, stay hidden if he wants to win the 2024 presidential elections because, quote, he doesn't inspire confidence. And that's absolutely true. As the latest speech by Joe Biden was very perplexing, very confusing, as a lot of very voluptuous, engorged, large women were behind him, literally cheering for googly gawk. This, as it's important to understand here, that politics is extremely dirty, and that's exactly what we found out after we got leaked audio of a private conversation that happened between Kari Lake and the Arizona Republican Party chair that now Kari Lake is demanding resign. As the audio that Kari Lake released was extremely shocking. It should be front page news everywhere, as the Republican Party chair literally went to her and said, hey, we'll buy you out. We'll bribe you. Just stop being in politics and we'll give you anything and everything that you want. How much money do you want? What do I counteroffer these very powerful people that want to silence your political voice? Which, of course, Kari Lake said, no, I will not do that. As the Republican Party chair literally described fears of him being taken out and having to deal with car bombs in response to Kari Lake saying no to these powerful people that were trying to bribe her out of politics. Again, the story of what happened to Kari Lake deserves a lot more attention than it's getting right now, highlighting the seriousness, the nefariousness of very powerful influencers, banksters, and big money corporatists that will spend all sorts of money trying to go after someone that is representing a larger populist ideology. And I don't even agree with a lot of Kari's policies, but what's happening to her is absolutely freaking crazy. And right now, more than ever, she deserves our support for the clear pressure that she's facing, as it's fair to say that she's pissed off some very powerful individuals and she's willing to stand up against them, and therefore we need to be willing to stand behind her, as she is representing something that is extremely unique, and that's a politician that won't take a bribe. That's a politician that I think is worth considering to support, even though you might not agree with her political policies, but for frick's sakes, we just got to look behind the curtain to see all the nefarious games that they're playing behind the scenes. And that is something that I believe needs to be talked about more. And if you agree, share this video with your friends and family members. It is more imperative than ever. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys doing that. And I am only here because of you. And that's why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on WeAreChange.org. One more video coming your way right now on LukeUnfiltered.com. See you there.